If you grew up in the 1970s, you remember this. If you grew up in the 1970s, get ready. This video's gonna hit you right in the memories. You didn't just live through it, you felt it. So stay tuned, because you're about to remember things you didn't even realize you forgot. Shag Carpet. There was a time when walking barefoot across your living room felt like stepping into a cloud, and that's because of shag carpet. In the 1970s, this wildly textured flooring wasn't just part of your home decor. It was the decor. Plush and thick, its long fibers swallowed your toes in warmth, offering the kind of comfort that made you want to lie down right there and make carpet angels. And the colors? They weren't shy. Avocado green, burnt orange, mustard yellow. Each one seemed to echo the decade's love for bold self-expression. But beyond the aesthetics, shag carpet was a mood. It softened the hard edges of the world outside. It muffled arguments, caught cookie crumbs, and held on to laughter like a silent witness to daily life. Its presence in the house, under coffee tables, in sunken living rooms, lining bedrooms, felt permanent, like part of the family. Though it eventually faded from fashion, replaced by sleeker, easier-to-clean styles, there's something deeply nostalgic about the way it hugged every step. Today, even a glimpse of shag carpet can unlock 1,000 memories. The smell of the old couch, the hum of the TV, the sound of a parent's voice echoing down the hall. Some textures live forever in our hearts. Pong, Atari. I still remember the buzz of fluorescent lights and the clink of quarters in my dad's favorite corner bar, where I first laid eyes on Pong. I must have been 8 or 9, barely tall enough to see over the machine. But when that simple, white dot started bouncing across the screen, I was hooked. It wasn't just a game, it felt like magic. 2 paddles, 1 ball, and suddenly, you were in a high-stakes battle of reflexes and bragging rights. Pong wasn't flashy, but that was the beauty of it. It drew you in with its rhythm, its simplicity, and that growing tension as the ball sped up. What began as a training project at Atari in 1972 quickly exploded into a cultural phenomenon, showing up in arcades, taverns, and eventually our living rooms with the release of Home Pong. And sure, by today's standards, it's primitive, but at the time, it was a glimpse into the future. It didn't just entertain, it sparked something bigger. Looking back, Pong was more than a game. It was the moment the world realized that screens could be interactive, and for a kid like me, it felt like a portal had just opened there. Pet rock. Remember when your best friend had 4 googly eyes and fit inside a shoebox? That's right. We're talking about the great pet rock craze of 1975. It sounds ridiculous now, but back then, it was pure genius. Smooth, silent, and impossible to kill, your pet rock came tucked in a cardboard box with straw bedding and breathing holes, as if it needed air. The real charm, though, was the tongue-in-cheek instruction manual. It walked you through training your rock to stay, roll over, or just sit still, something it was already doing perfectly. Created by Gary Dahl, a witty ad man who joked over drinks that a rock was the perfect low-maintenance pet, the idea took off like wildfire. At the height of the craze, over 1 million Americans proudly adopted a rock for $3.95. Parents bought them as stocking stuffers. Kids gave them names, carried them to school, even talked to them like tiny stone therapists. Sure, it only lasted a few months, but in that brief, absurd window of time, we all believed, just a little, that love, imagination, and humor could turn even the most ordinary object into something truly special. And honestly, it kind of did. Lunchboxes. Every kid had their own ritual before the school bell rang, but mine always started with unzipping my backpack just enough to make sure my lunchbox was still there. Not because I thought it might go missing, but because it felt like carrying a little piece of home with me. In the 1970s, lunchboxes weren't just practical, they were personal, almost sacred. Mine was a glossy metal box with the $6 million man charging across the front, his bionic arm mid-swing. The matching thermos clinked inside, filled with lukewarm soup that somehow always tasted like Saturdays. These boxes weren't just for food, they were status symbols on the blacktop. You could tell a lot about a kid by their lunchbox. What shows they loved, what music they liked, even who they wanted to be. And when lunchtime rolled around, the cafeteria became a gallery of pop culture, each table covered in the faces of superheroes, cartoon characters, and rock stars. They got scratched, dented, and sometimes even banned for being too sturdy, but they never lost their charm. Decades later, just the sound of that metal latch clicking open is enough to take you right back. What's the very first thing that comes to your mind when you think of growing up in the 1970s? Please share your thoughts in the comments. Bowl cut. Did your mom ever cut your hair with an actual cereal bowl, or did it just look like she did? If you were a kid growing up in the 1970s, chances are you rocked the infamous bowl cut at least once. It wasn't a choice. It was a rite of passage. Simple, symmetrical, and mercilessly straight. The bowl cut was the go-to hairstyle for parents who believed in efficiency over aesthetics. You'd sit on a kitchen chair, towel draped around your shoulders, and pray that the scissors didn't tickle your ears. Inspired in part by the Beatles' mop tops and, perhaps unintentionally, Moe from the Three Stooges, this haircut managed to straddle the line between cool and comedy sketch. But here's the thing. It stuck. Somehow, it became iconic. Maybe it was the way it framed your chubby cheeks in every school photo. Or maybe it was just that everyone had one, so nobody really questioned it. Looking back, it's easy to laugh, but there's also a weird kind of comfort in remembering a time when style was as easy as flipping a bowl upside down. It was silly, sure, but unmistakably part of growing up. Schoolhouse Rock. Saturday mornings smelled like pancakes and sounded like conjunction junction. What's your function? It was the one time of the week when learning felt like a secret gift, wrapped in music, color, and clever rhymes. I remember sitting cross-legged on our shag carpet, cereal bowl in hand, as Schoolhouse Rock lit up the TV screen. Somehow it made things like grammar and government feel exciting, even cool. The songs stuck with you, not just because they were catchy, but because they made sense of the world in a way no textbook ever could. Whether it was a lonely little Bill sitting on Capitol Hill or a zero finding its hero, these 3-minute bursts of brilliance turned abstract concepts into something alive. The creators knew that kids could learn anything if you met them where their imaginations lived. That's what made it special. Decades later, most of us might not remember every detail from the classroom, but we sure can still sing those tunes. Schoolhouse Rock didn't just teach us math or history, it taught us that knowledge could be joyful, that learning could groove, and that even the smallest ideas could leave the biggest impact. Tube socks. Nothing said ready for recess, quite like a pair of tube socks pulled up to your knees, the stripes peeking out proudly beneath your shorts. In the 1970s, those socks weren't just part of your gym outfit. They were the outfit. Everyone wore them. Kids sprinting across playgrounds, teens on skateboards, even grown-ups grooving under disco balls. They were bold, a little goofy, and totally essential. Mine always had red and blue stripes, though they'd fade to a soft pinkish hue after too many spins in the washer. Still, I wore them like a badge of honor. The thing about tube socks was that they didn't care if you were fast or clumsy, cool or awkward. They just showed up and stayed put. They hugged your calves like old friends and soaked up summer sweat like champs. And when you wiped out on the blacktop, they offered just enough padding to soften the blow. Sure, fashion eventually moved on to ankle socks and sleeker styles, but for a while there, those tall, stripy wonders ruled the world. or at least the lunch line. Looking back, they were silly, loud, and absolutely perfect, just like childhood should be. Mood ring. What if a little ring on your finger could reveal the secrets of your heart? In the mid-1970s, that dreamy idea captured the imagination of millions. Mood rings weren't just jewelry. They were tiny windows into your soul, or at least, that's what we like to believe. I remember slipping one on at the corner drugstore, watching it shift from murky gray to deep blue, feeling like I'd just uncovered a cosmic truth. The science behind it was simple: liquid crystals responding to body heat. But the magic? That was in the mystery. One minute you were calm and collected, the next your ring turned green and sent you spiraling into middle school existentialism. Were you anxious? In love? Or just running a little warm? It didn't really matter. The colors became a language of their own, a secret code shared between friends huddled around lockers. They sparkled on fingers next to chipped nail polish and faded friendship bracelets, symbols of emotion in a world still learning how to name them. And even though the craze faded, the wonder stuck around. For a brief, beautiful moment, it felt like your feelings had a color, and that made them feel a little more real. Tiger Beat magazine. Somewhere between a Lisa Frank notebook and a rotary phone sat the holy grail of every teenage girl's bedroom in the 1970s. Tiger Beat magazine. It wasn't just a magazine, it was a monthly passport to heartthrob heaven. You'd rip it open before even getting off the driveway, flipping straight to the centerfold to see if this month's poster was Donny Osmond or David Cassidy. And if it was Leif Garrett, game over. His smile was getting taped to your closet door before dinner. The glossy pages were filled with exclusive interviews that usually boiled down to favorite ice cream flavors and whether he liked shy girls. Spoiler, he always did. But that didn't matter. Tiger Beat made you feel seen. Like maybe, just maybe, your handwritten fan letter might be the one he actually read. The magazine was sweet, innocent escapism wrapped in bubblegum pink and puka shells. It gave us crushes before we knew what to do with them, and dreams that lived somewhere between the homeroom and the record store. Looking back, it was silly, it was sugary, it was absolutely perfect, and it made growing up just a little more magical. Jaws. It started with 2 haunting notes and ended with millions of people too afraid to go back in the water. Jaws didn't just hit theaters in the summer of 1975, it swallowed the whole season. The moment that Finn cut through the surface of the ocean, everything changed. Suddenly, the beach wasn't just a place for sunbathing and surfboards, it was a potential hunting ground, and we were the prey. Spielberg's mechanical shark, which barely worked half the time, became even scarier because you couldn't see it. The tension built in shadows and ripples, in silence broken only by John Williams' relentless score. I remember clutching the theater seat, breath held, as Brody whispered, "You're gonna need a bigger boat." That line, like the film itself, became etched into the collective American psyche. But beyond the thrills, Jaws reshaped how movies were released and marketed, blazing the trail for what we now call the summer blockbuster. It was bold, terrifying, and brilliantly executed. And even now, decades later, when you step into the ocean and feel something brush against your leg, you can't help but hear that music. Just 2 notes, and you're gone. If this video brought back some sweet memories, give it a like and hit subscribe. We've got plenty more nostalgia coming your way. Star Wars. It was more than a movie, it was an awakening. When Star Wars hit theaters in May of 1977, it didn't just play on the screen, it swallowed the room whole. For 2 hours, you weren't sitting in a theater. You were drifting through a galaxy of twin suns, blaster fire, and ancient legends whispered through the Force. The crawl of yellow words across a black starfield gave you chills before a single character even spoke. And then came the rumble. the impossible sight of a star destroyer stretching endlessly across the screen. That moment changed everything. George Lucas wasn't just telling a story, he was pulling us into a myth built from spaceships and sand dunes, rebellion and redemption. Kids gripped their armrests like lightsabers. Adults stared, wide-eyed, like they were seeing movies for the first time again. From the dusty plains of Tatooine to the cold heart of the Death Star, every frame felt massive, yet strangely intimate. And long after the credits rolled, that universe stayed with you. Because Star Wars wasn't just about battles and heroes, it was about believing, even for a little while, that the impossible was right there on the horizon. The hustle and disco dance. Can you still hear the glittery pulse of Van McCoy's "The Hustle" echoing through a smoky disco floor? The moment that beat dropped in 1975, it was like a spark ignited under every dance shoe in America. Night after night, bodies moved in sync under spinning mirror balls, hips gliding and arms slicing the air like silk ribbons in rhythm. The hustle wasn't just a dance, it was electricity. Born in New York's underground clubs and nurtured by the vibrant energy of Latin rhythms, it burst into the mainstream with a swagger all its own. When you stepped onto the floor, it didn't matter who you were or where you came from. Under the colored lights of Studio 54 or a neighborhood roller rink, the hustle united everyone in that pure, hypnotic groove. It was fluid and flirty, with just enough structure to keep you grounded and just enough freedom to make you fly. Even now, decades later, you only need to hear those first few bars to feel it rise in your chest, that urge to move, to spin, to belong to the beat. Disco may have dimmed, but the hustle still lives on, shimmering like sequins in our memory. 8-track tapes. Sliding an 8-track tape into the dashboard player felt like unlocking a little world made just for you. That soft click, the gentle hum of magnetic tape catching. Suddenly, your car was a rolling concert hall. In the 1970s, music didn't just play, it lingered, swirled around your head, and settled into your bones. You didn't fast forward to your favorite track. You let it ride, front to back, the way the artist meant it to be heard. Maybe it was Jackson Browne on a late-night cruise, or a full-volume blast of Boston on a sun-drenched afternoon. The audio would shift tracks mid-song sometimes, jolting you for a second, but somehow even that felt part of the charm. 8 tracks were bulky, imperfect, and completely unforgettable. They turned glove compartments into treasure chests and made the open road feel infinite. And though they've faded into memory like a melody trailing off at dusk, there's something about them that still sings, not just the music, but the ritual, the rhythm, the romance of it all, when every song felt like it was playing just for you. Saturday Night Live. What other show could make America laugh at itself while half the country was still reeling from Watergate? When Saturday Night Live hit the airwaves in October 1975, it wasn't just sketch comedy, it was a cultural cannonball. With its smoky stage, unpredictable energy, and irreverent attitude, SNL felt more like a basement party that just happened to be broadcast nationwide. It was messy, it was raw, and it was brilliant. Lorne Michaels gathered a gang of troublemakers, Belushi, Radner, Aykroyd, Chase, who didn't just perform comedy, they lit it on fire. Weekend Update took aim at politicians with deadpan precision, while characters like the Samurai Futaba or Roseanne Dana skewered everything from corporate hypocrisy to morning breath. The show didn't beg for approval. It dared you not to laugh. And somehow, it became the voice of a generation disillusioned by war, politics, and polyester suits. Even the music felt revolutionary, with live performances that bled into the chaos like another cast member. Looking back, that first era of SNL didn't just push boundaries. It redrew the entire map of late-night television. It was satire at its sharpest, and man, did it know exactly where to cut. If you had a time machine, what moment from the 70s would you want to relive? Happy Days. Every Tuesday night, right after homework and just before bedtime, my whole family would gather on the couch, TV trays in hand, to watch Happy Days. The living room smelled like meatloaf and carpet powder, and for 30 sweet minutes, the world felt simple, warm, and good. That show wasn't just entertainment, it was a kind of comfort. Set in an idealized version of 1950s America, Happy Days brought us the familiar rhythms of a small-town life we longed for, even if we never lived it. There was something reassuring in the easy banter between Richie and his dad, the gentle wisdom of Mr. and Mrs. Cunningham, or the way Fonzie, cool leather jacket and all, somehow always did the right thing. It felt like visiting old friends every week, friends who made you laugh, made you feel safe, and made growing up seem a little less scary. Even now, when I hear that opening theme, those first notes of Sunday, Monday, Happy Days, a wave of nostalgia washes over me. It reminds me of a slower time, when family sat close, and life's biggest concern was whether Fonzie would fix the jukebox with just one punch. Bicentennial. Flags fluttered from every front porch, and the air in July 1976 felt thick with something more than summer. It was pride, remembrance, and a deep sense of unity. America's bicentennial wasn't just a celebration of 200 years of independence. It was a moment of reflection, a breath between chapters, where the nation paused to look back at its journey and forward with cautious hope. From small-town parades to the grandeur of Operation Sail in New York Harbor, it felt like the entire country was wrapped in red, white, and blue bunting. I remember my parents carefully ironing on a bicentennial patch to my denim jacket, and how in school we practiced the Pledge of Allegiance with extra reverence. Even cereal boxes and soda cans were dressed for the occasion. Across the country, towns staged reenactments, families gathered around televisions, and fireworks lit up skies that hadn't seen such brightness in years. In the midst of political scandal and economic strain, 1976 gave us something to stand tall about. The bicentennial was more than a milestone. It was a reminder of who we were, and the enduring spirit that carried us through 2 turbulent centuries. MAS*H. Somehow, a makeshift tent in the middle of a war zone became one of the most human places on television. Mass H wasn't just a show, it was a delicate dance between absurdity and heartbreak, stitched together by surgeons who used humor as a scalpel to cut through the horror around them. Every episode felt like a letter from the front lines, not just of Korea, but of life itself. One minute you'd be laughing at Hawkeye's off-the-wall antics, and the next, you'd be blindsided by a moment so raw it left your chest heavy. The clink of surgical tools, the shuffle of boots through mud, the quiet after the choppers landed. It all felt real. And yet, amidst the chaos, there was always warmth. The deep bond between the doctors, the awkward charm of Radar, the quiet dignity of Colonel Potter. Even when it turned political or deeply personal, MASH never lost sight of the simple truth at its core. War is hell. But people can still be kind, funny, and fiercely alive in the middle of it. Watching it felt like finding a heartbeat in the middle of the noise. And we never stopped listening. Hamburger Helper. What could bring a family to the dinner table faster than the smell of sizzling ground beef and that unmistakable packet of powdered magic? In the 1970s, Hamburger Helper wasn't just a quick fix, it was a weeknight tradition. With just a pound of hamburger, a box, and a little boiling water, Mom could whip up something warm, filling, and full of flavor. It was affordable comfort at a time when grocery prices were climbing and families were watching every dollar. I still remember the steam curling out of the kitchen, the clatter of forks on Corelle plates, and that funny little glove mascot waving from the TV. It wasn't gourmet, but it didn't need to be. What mattered was that it brought everyone together, elbows on the table, talking between bites of cheesy noodles or stroganoff. Leftovers? Rarely. And even now, the sight of that red box tucked on a pantry shelf can tug at something deep. Memories of laughter, TV trays, and the way a simple meal could feel like a small victory. Hamburger Helper didn't just help the hamburger. It helped make home feel like home. Watergate. Watergate wasn't just a scandal. It was a moment of reckoning that forever changed how America watched its leaders. One summer night in 1972, a strange little crime unfolded inside the Watergate office complex, and by the time the dust settled, the American presidency would never look the same again. 5 men were arrested for breaking into the Democratic National Committee's headquarters, carrying surveillance equipment and secrets that reached deep into the White House. At first, it seemed like a political footnote, barely more than a curious blip on the nightly news. But behind the scenes, a darker truth was unraveling. As journalists Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein chased the story, whispers from an anonymous informant, codenamed Deep Throat, began exposing a vast web of espionage, obstruction, and deceit. One revelation led to another, until the scandal spilled out into Senate hearings, broadcast live into every living room across the country. Then came the tapes. Conversations recorded in the Oval Office made it undeniable. The president had known more than he claimed. Faced with impeachment, Richard Nixon stepped down on August 9th, 1974, leaving behind a shaken nation and a broken sense of political trust. For you, what made the 70s feel so different compared to today's world? Marlboro Man. He didn't say much, but somehow made smoking look like the manliest thing since splitting firewood shirtless. The Marlboro Man wasn't just an ad campaign. He was a full-blown American myth, galloping across every billboard, magazine, and TV screen in the 1970s. With his weathered face, cowboy hat tilted just right, and a cigarette dangling from the corner of his mouth, he sold more than tobacco. He sold freedom, grit, and that rugged lone wolf charm every teenager and desk jockey secretly dreamed of. You didn't need to own a horse. Heck, you didn't even need to know how to ride one. All it took was a pack of Marlboros in your shirt pocket to feel like you belonged out on the range. Of course, behind all that tumbleweed glamour was a bitter truth. Several real-life Marlboro men passed away from smoking-related diseases, adding a haunting twist to the legend. But back then, we weren't thinking about warnings. We were chasing the wind. Looking back now, the whole thing feels like a dusty snapshot of a different America. A little wild, a little reckless, but unforgettable all the same. Farrah Fawcett poster. Who could forget the way sunlight hit that red swimsuit, taped to bedroom walls across America like a shrine to beauty itself? I still remember my older brother unrolling it from its cardboard tube, smoothing it out with the kind of reverence usually reserved for baseball cards or band posters. But this was something else entirely. Farrah Fawcett wasn't just a TV star or a pretty face. She was the face of the 1970s. That poster, shot in 1976 by Bruce McBroom in her backyard, using a simple Mexican blanket as a backdrop, became an overnight sensation. It sold in the millions, and suddenly, every boy with a thumbtack and a blank spot on the wall was smitten. She did her own hair, her own makeup, and wore her own swimsuit. Something about that made it feel more real, more her. And maybe that's why it stuck. It wasn't just about sex appeal. It was about the moment, the magic, and the mystique of an icon caught mid-laugh, forever frozen in time. Even now, that poster isn't just a piece of paper. It's a cultural relic, glowing with the soft, nostalgic light of a decade that worshipped its stars like gods. 20 everyday items from the 1980s that Gen Z has never seen. Before touchscreens and TikTok, there was a time when everyday life ran on cassette tapes, clunky remotes, and toys that didn't need Wi-Fi to be magical. Some of these gadgets shaped a generation, others vanished without a trace. Let's rewind the clock and rediscover 20 everyday items Gen Z has likely never seen. Simon Game. Nothing lit up a living room quite like that iconic round gadget with 4 giant buttons, red, blue, green, and yellow, each one pulsing to its own electronic beat like it had a mind of its own. The Simon Game wasn't just a toy, it was a test of patience, memory, and sibling rivalry. I once played it so obsessively on a rainy afternoon that my little brother, in a fit of defeat, hid the batteries in the freezer. We didn't speak for an hour, but the silence didn't last long, because the pull of Simon's rhythmic sequence was too strong to ignore. Released in 1978 by Milton Bradley and dreamed up by tech pioneers Ralph Baer and Howard Morrison, Simon took the arcade-inspired concept of Touch Me and gave it a brighter, bolder, and more ear-friendly twist. With each round, the pattern grew faster and longer, daring your reflexes to keep up. It wasn't just a game, it was a performance, half memory test, half disco light show. By the early 80s, Simon had become a staple of birthday parties and holiday wish lists, riding the wave of America's growing fascination with electronic play. And even now, those beeping tones still echo in the memories of every kid who tried to outsmart the sequence. Did any of these items make you smile or bring back a special memory? CRT televisions. The glow from the corner of the room wasn't just light, it was presence, comfort, and connection. For millions of families throughout the 80s, the CRT television wasn't a luxury, it was a fixture. These boxy giants with their curved glass fronts and deep, humming backsides brought the outside world into your living room, one static-filled broadcast at a time. Long before flat screens and streaming apps, the CRT stood like a trusted friend, delivering sitcoms, news bulletins, cartoons, and late-night talk shows with a glow that felt almost alive. Even the smallest models were weighty beasts, demanding sturdy furniture and careful lifting. And while their colors weren't always crisp, and their picture occasionally wobbled, they carried a charm, an imperfection that somehow made the moments feel more real. Behind that thick glass, electron beams painted moving pictures that raised generations. Today's screens are sleeker, smarter, and sharper, but they'll never recreate the quiet magic of gathering around a CRT, wrapped in blankets, popcorn in hand, as the room dimmed and the screen came to life. Speak and spell. Did you ever sit cross-legged on the carpet, pressing buttons on a toy that actually talked back to you? Released in 1978 by Texas Instruments, the bright orange Speak and Spell quickly became a standout in the world of educational toys. Its chunky keyboard and pixelated display invited children to explore language in a way that felt new, interactive, responsive, and engaging. At the heart of this plastic marvel was a pioneering speech synthesizer, capable of transforming written input into spoken words with an unmistakably robotic tone. Kids could swap cartridges to access new games and spelling challenges, making the device endlessly entertaining and surprisingly versatile. Encouragement came through cheerful electronic responses, and when errors happened, the toy nudged users to try again. Patient, consistent, and never discouraging. Instead of memorizing from a page, kids learned by engaging with a voice that responded to every tap. It wasn't flashy by today's standards, but it introduced a hands-on relationship with technology that sparked curiosity. The Speak and Spell didn't just teach letters. It created moments of discovery, where language came alive through sounds, buttons, and glowing red text on a tiny screen. For many, That simple device was their first encounter with learning powered by circuits and code. Cable boxes. How did a simple black box turn living rooms into miniature movie theaters? In the 1980s, cable boxes quietly revolutionized how families experienced television. Before they arrived, most households relied on a handful of local broadcast channels, news, sitcoms, and maybe a weekend cartoon. But once cable entered the picture, everything changed. These compact devices, usually perched on top of the television set, decoded encrypted signals and opened the door to a world of programming that felt almost limitless. Sports networks, movie channels, music video stations, and even pay-per-view events became available at the twist of a dial or push of a button. Early models were bulky, built with manual sliders or chunky buttons, and some came with wired remotes that stretched across the carpet. While the designs varied, their impact was universal. Cable boxes offered viewers the freedom to tailor their TV experience, to choose what to watch and when to watch it. They didn't just add channels, they reshaped expectations. In many ways, they laid the groundwork for the on-demand culture we live in today, where variety and access define how we connect with stories on screen. Floppy disks. Tucked into desk drawers, backpacks, and shirt pockets, floppy disks were once as common as pens and notepads. These slim plastic squares may seem humble by today's standards, but during the 1980s and 90s, they were essential to how we saved, shared, and moved information. The larger 5.25-inch version, introduced in the late 70s, was flimsy and flexible, storing just over a megabyte, enough for a few documents or a simple program. Then came the 3.5-inch disc, compact and more durable, with its sliding metal shield and hard shell offering slightly better protection and a touch more space. Despite their limitations, these discs were the portable memory of their time. You could pass a project to a friend, install new software, or boot up an entire system, all from a floppy. They were surprisingly tactile, requiring gentle handling, but offering the satisfying click of a drive taking hold. Vulnerable to heat, magnets, and wear, they didn't age well, but they paved the way for everything that came after: CDs, USB drives, and the invisible world of cloud storage. In their own quiet way, floppy disks helped teach an entire generation what digital memory really meant. Answering machines. The gentle whir of a tape rewinding, followed by the soft click of a message starting to play, once echoed through quiet living rooms after a long day. Answering machines, now relics of a slower era, were once essential companions in homes across the country. They brought a sense of connection, even in absence, holding space for missed voices, delayed conversations, and words left behind. Though the technology first emerged decades earlier, it wasn't until the 1970s and 1980s that these machines became practical for everyday households. By the time the PhoneMate 400 arrived, capable of storing multiple messages on magnetic tape, the idea of missing a call without missing the message felt like a small revolution. Built with simple components, a microphone, a speaker, a tape deck, they quietly captured the details of daily life: a friend checking in, a job offer, a birthday wish. Some models even offered remote access, allowing users to dial in and retrieve their messages from afar, an early taste of the mobility we now take for granted. In their simplicity, these machines carried more than just information. They carried voices, they carried moments, and they reminded us that even silence sometimes has something to say. Jelly shoes. Who could forget the soft shimmer of jelly shoes catching the summer sun as kids ran across driveways and sidewalks? These vibrant, semi-transparent sandals made their mark on the 1980s, offering a blend of whimsy and everyday usefulness. Made from lightweight PVC, jelly shoes were known for being bendable, waterproof, and easy on the wallet. That flexibility, paired with their bright, translucent colors, gave them their playful nickname and instant appeal. Designs varied widely, some open-toed with buckles, others molded into flats or even boots, each drenched in neon or coated with glitter. First designed by the French company Jelly Shoes in 1980, the style quickly crossed borders and became a staple for children, teens, and trend-conscious adults alike. Whether worn to the pool or paired with summer dresses, they offered comfort with a distinct visual flair. Their popularity soared when public figures and fashion icons started wearing them, giving the humble jelly shoe a place in pop culture history. Even as fads faded and materials advanced, the memory of jellies continues to sparkle in collective memory, reminding many of sunlit afternoons, grassy backyards, and the delight of slipping into something that felt both fun and free. Was there something you loved in the 80s that didn't make our list? Share it in the comments below. Atari 2600. Back when furniture was heavy, phones had cords, and TVs had wood paneling, the Atari 2600 was the height of living room excitement. Introduced in 1977 as the Atari Video Computer System, this compact console gave players a chance to experience a variety of video games from their own homes. With its cartridge-based system, users could easily switch between titles, chomping ghosts in Pac-Man, leaping over barrels in Donkey Kong, or exploring dangerous jungles in Pitfall. Underneath its plastic shell ran an 8-bit microprocessor and 128 bytes of RAM, powering gameplay through its instantly recognizable joystick controllers. The simplicity of the controls, paired with the variety of available games, helped cement the 2600's popularity. Even when the industry faced collapse during the video game crash of 1983, the Atari 2600 held strong in memory and legacy. It transformed static TV screens into dynamic playgrounds and reshaped how people interacted with their televisions. For many who grew up in that era, this console marked their first steps into digital worlds, sparking friendships, fierce competition, and countless hours spent in pixelated adventures that still echo through gaming history. Polaroid cameras. What could be more thrilling than watching a memory appear right in the palm of your hand? In an era when patience was the norm and waiting for film to develop took days, Polaroid cameras felt almost like magic. With a soft, mechanical whir and a gentle click, these boxy little wonders gave us something we hadn't seen before. Instant images, warm to the touch, slowly emerging from a blank sheet as if summoned by memory itself. Introduced in 1948 by Edwin H. Land, the Polaroid revolution began quietly but surged in popularity by the 1980s, when their chunky design and signature rainbow stripe became as iconic as the photos they produced. Unlike traditional film cameras, these didn't rely on dark rooms or lab processing. Instead, light-sensitive chemicals embedded in the film revealed the picture within a minute, turning casual snapshots into tiny keepsakes almost instantly. Whether at birthday parties, road trips, or Sunday barbecues, a Polaroid wasn't just a tool, it was part of the moment. It made photography feel spontaneous, shared, and wonderfully imperfect. In a time before filters and cloud storage, this was how we captured life, one instant at a time. Ghetto blasters. Music didn't just play in the background during the 80s. It moved with you, echoed down sidewalks, and poured out of speakers you carried like a badge of honor. Boomboxes, often called ghetto blasters, became symbols of expression and attitude. These machines, powered by chunky batteries and packed with booming speakers, blasted cassette tapes and FM radio wherever you went. Their flashy exteriors, covered in chrome and bold detailing, mirrored the volume they produced, loud, unapologetic, and full of personality. While some models debuted in the late 70s, it was during the following decade that they hit their stride, especially within street culture and early hip-hop. With dual tape decks, recording capabilities, and adjustable equalizers, These units let users create, remix, and share sound on the go. Though bulky and often heavy, teens slung them over shoulders proudly, turning sidewalks, basketball courts, and stoops into stages. Each boombox had a distinct look and sound, often reflecting the identity of its owner. These portable powerhouses didn't just play music, they shaped moments, drew crowds, and turned public space into personal soundscapes. If this video brought back some good memories, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe for more nostalgic trips like this. Casio Calculator Watch. Some gadgets didn't just tell time, they told the future. In the tech-hungry spirit of the 1980s, few devices captured imaginations quite like the Casio Calculator Watch. With its sleek digital face and tiny number pad built right into the front, it was part timepiece, part math machine, and all cool. Released in 1980, it quickly became a badge of both practicality and nerdy charm, adored by students, engineers, and anyone who liked to crunch numbers without reaching for a notepad. The most iconic models, like the Casio Databank, went even further, offering not just a calculator, but also a digital calendar, alarm, and even a rudimentary phone book. All of this was packed into a wristwatch that looked like something out of a sci-fi film. Beyond its features, the calculator watch became a symbol of the era's optimism, where technology was small, wearable, and wonderfully hands-on. It wasn't just about function, it was about imagination. Whether you were solving homework, adjusting schedules, or timing your Walkman playlist, this little wrist-bound wonder brought the future just a bit closer. Sega Genesis. What happens to the worlds we once held in our hands, now silent, waiting behind a black plastic shell? The Sega Genesis, branded as the Mega Drive outside North America, marked a turning point in home gaming when it debuted in Japan in 1988 and reached U.S. homes the following year. As Sega's third console, it confidently entered the 16-bit battlefield with sharp graphics, smooth scrolling, and soundtracks that thumped with energy. Powered by a Motorola 68000 processor and supported by the Z-Log Z80 for audio, the Genesis pushed boundaries that once felt unreachable for home systems. Titles like Sonic the Hedgehog, Streets of Rage, and Madden NFL defined a generation of gameplay that demanded speed, reflexes, and imagination. But the Genesis wasn't just about performance, it spoke with attitude. Its bold marketing directly called out competitors, and its identity became synonymous with edginess and action. Players connected through rivalries, friendships, and hours spent mastering difficult levels. Every cartridge promised a new journey, and the console carved a permanent space in gaming history. Decades later, even the chime of its startup screen still sparks a rush of memories that never truly faded. What's the one thing from the 80s you wish your kids or grandkids could experience? The clapper. 2 claps, a click, and suddenly the lamp flickered on like it had been waiting for your command. Such was the playful magic of the clapper. First introduced to homes in 1984 by Joseph Enterprises and popularized through Joe P.'s unforgettable commercials, this gadget quickly gained attention as both quirky and useful. Plugged directly into a regular wall outlet, it gave users the ability to operate 2 separate appliances using distinct clap patterns. Whether turning on a lamp or switching off a TV from the couch, its simplicity was part of its charm. The slogan, "Clap on, clap off," the clapper, rang out on countless late-night broadcasts and became part of pop culture's soundscape. But beyond its entertainment value, the device served practical purposes as well. Some models included a noise-activated feature to trigger lights during unexpected sounds, adding a touch of security to the home. It required no programming, no screens, and no internet connection, just hands and sound. In an age where convenience often means complexity, the clapper stood out for doing something smart with almost no learning curve. It made daily tasks a little easier, and did so with a wink and a cheerful clap. Digital dictionaries. Digital dictionaries first began capturing imaginations in the 1980s, emerging as compact, handheld tools that made the once daunting task of flipping through bulky reference books feel suddenly effortless. These early devices, often no bigger than a wallet, featured tiny monochrome screens and basic keyboards, offering quick access to definitions, synonyms, translations, and even pronunciation guides. The Seiko Electronic Dictionary was among the first of its kind, modest in design and vocabulary, but revolutionary in purpose. It laid the foundation for a wave of innovation from companies like Casio and Sharp, who soon introduced sleeker models packed with expanded word banks, grammar tools, and user-friendly interfaces. These pocket-sized companions quickly gained traction among students, language learners, and frequent travelers, offering reliable linguistic support in classrooms, airports, and coffee shops. Over time, as mobile apps and online resources surged ahead with cloud-powered databases and voice integration, digital dictionaries quietly faded from everyday use. Yet they represent a key chapter in our transition from print to digital, where curiosity met convenience and language became just a keystroke away. Dot matrix printers. The sharp clatter of pins striking paper once filled classrooms, office corners, and back rooms of small-town shops, a mechanical rhythm that marked the pulse of productivity in the 1980s. Dot matrix printers, though anything but graceful, were built for function over form. With a print head that zipped from side to side, firing tiny needles through an inked ribbon, they formed letters and images out of meticulously arranged dots. The results weren't pretty by today's standards, but they were precise enough and, more importantly, dependable. First gaining traction in the 1970s, these printers became essential to businesses thanks to their ability to churn out multi-layered carbon forms without a hitch. The Centronics 101 was among the pioneers, setting a template others quickly followed. Despite their noise, and they were famously loud, they proved incredibly durable, often outlasting the very computers they were plugged into. For a generation that grew up waiting for that final sheet to finish scrolling out, the sound of a dot matrix printer wasn't just background noise. It was proof that something was getting done. VCRs. Do you ever think back to the quiet hum of a VCR loading a tape just before the screen flickered to life? For countless households during the 1980s, that sound marked the beginning of shared moments, whether it was family movie nights, a child's favorite cartoon rented from the corner store, or late-night shows carefully saved on tape. Debuting in the prior decade, the video cassette recorder gave people an entirely new relationship with television. Instead of waiting for a scheduled broadcast, they could take control, pausing, rewinding, or recording content to enjoy on their own time. VHS tapes became the format of choice, surpassing Betamax thanks to their longer runtime and lower cost. The technology may seem primitive now, but at the time, it represented real autonomy over home entertainment. It encouraged gathering, sitting close, and choosing stories together. Over time, magnetic tapes wore thin, images grew fuzzy, and audio lost its clarity. But the significance of those experiences remained intact. The VCR wasn't just another device. It reshaped how we planned our evenings, remembered our weekends, and connected as a family in front of a glowing screen that felt all our own. The Walkman. A pair of orange foam headphones once meant the world was yours, one song at a time. When Sony introduced the Walkman in 1979, they reshaped the way people experienced music, making it portable, private, and entirely their own. No longer tied to bulky stereos or shared spaces, listeners could now take their soundtracks along city sidewalks, through high school hallways, or across quiet stretches of suburban streets. The TPSL-2, the debut model, was compact but powerful, playing cassette tapes filled with hand-picked tracks and radio-recorded treasures. Whether it was a personal mixtape or a store-bought album, the music felt closer, more immediate. Those foam-covered headphones quickly became a recognizable symbol of personal escape, often spotted on buses, in bedrooms, and on park benches. While the batteries didn't last long and rewinding took some finesse, the trade-off was worth it. Users had the freedom to curate their soundscape wherever they went. The Walkman didn't require crowds or speakers to make an impression. It offered a quiet revolution in how people connected with melodies, lyrics, and memories, one rewind button at a time. Cabbage Patch Kids. What was it about those round faces and yarn-like hair that made every child feel like they were holding something truly their own? Among all the toy sensations that swept across the 1980s, few match the cultural explosion triggered by Cabbage Patch Kids. These plush-bodied, vinyl-headed dolls stood apart thanks to their individuality. Each came with a unique name, birth certificate, and an origin story that added a personal touch. Created by Xavier Roberts in 1978 and first sold under the name Little People, the dolls caught fire once Coleco began manufacturing them at scale in 1982. With their distinct expressions and soft features, they sparked an emotional bond with children and sparked a shopping frenzy that stunned even seasoned retailers. Parents waited in long lines, store shelves emptied in hours, and news stories captured scenes of chaos in toy aisles. Behind all that noise, though, was a deeper appeal, something real to hold, to care for, and to call your own. Before digital games or virtual pets, these dolls gave kids a sense of connection that lived beyond plastic and fabric. The craze eventually faded, but the memories held on. NES Zapper Guns. With a bright flash on the screen and the satisfying click of a plastic trigger, the NES Zapper turned television time into a high-stakes shooting gallery. Released in North America in 1985, alongside the Nintendo Entertainment System, this light gun accessory introduced an unexpected twist to home gaming. Its earliest version resembled a revolver, though it was soon reimagined in bright orange to distinguish it clearly from real weapons. Functioning through light detection technology, the Zapper responded to flashes emitted by the TV screen, syncing with in-game targets that challenged both timing and aim. Titles like Duck Hunt, Hogan's Alley, and Wild Gunman showcased its capabilities and added an extra layer of engagement to what had been a button-based experience. The concept behind it was simple, yet effective, integrating motion and accuracy in a way that felt refreshingly tactile. The Zapper didn't rely on complex graphics or advanced computing power. It relied on interaction, rhythm, and a touch of showmanship. It became one of the most memorable accessories of its era, helping establish Nintendo's identity as a brand willing to experiment. For players of the mid-80s, it offered an experience that was novel, immediate, and unforgettable. Game Boy. Plastic in your palm, buttons under your thumb, and a screen that glowed with possibility. That was the magic of the original Game Boy. Released by Nintendo in 1989 and developed under the direction of Gunpei Yokoi, this handheld console defied expectations from the moment it arrived. With an 8-bit processor and a grayscale display, its hardware seemed modest compared to arcade machines or home systems. Yet it proved that design isn't always about power. It's about experience. Its compact frame, sturdy build, and swappable cartridges gave players access to a massive library of titles, from fast-paced puzzles like Tetris to sweeping quests in The Legend of Zelda. Its battery efficiency meant fewer interruptions and longer adventures, especially compared to other handhelds of the time. The Game Boy became a travel companion, a school recess essential, and a nightly escape under dim lighting. It resonated with players of all ages through gameplay depth and accessibility, not flashy effects. Even today, that soft, iconic chime at startup stirs a deep connection. The Game Boy proved that innovation thrives in simplicity, and that sometimes the best journeys begin on a tiny screen held in both hands. Air poppers. Warm evenings, the scent of popcorn in the air, and a gentle hum from the kitchen. That's when the air popper earned its place in the heart of the home. Emerging in the late 1970s and hitting its stride in the 1980s, the air popper transformed the way families made popcorn. Unlike stovetop methods that relied on oil and patience, these clever little machines used a blast of hot air to puff kernels into light. Fluffy bites in a matter of minutes. It was cleaner, quicker, and embraced by health-conscious households looking for a better snack without sacrificing taste. One of the first to make waves was the Presto popcorn pumper in 1978, a device that made popcorn making feel futuristic and fun. As microwave popcorn had yet to fully take over, the air popper became the go-to appliance for movie nights, sleepovers, and casual get-togethers. You could hear the kernels rattle and watch as they burst out into the bowl like tiny explosions of joy. More than just a kitchen tool, it offered a small but meaningful upgrade to daily life. Simple, efficient, and satisfying. The air popper didn't just change how we made snacks, it changed how we gathered around them. Pagers, beepers. A single buzz, a quick glance at a tiny screen, and suddenly you knew someone needed you, even if you weren't quite sure who yet. Pagers, or beepers, as they were lovingly called, were once the cutting edge of mobile communication. These palm-sized devices surged in popularity during the 1980s and 1990s, quietly slipping into the daily rhythms of doctors, delivery drivers, business people, and teenagers alike. Originally developed in the 1940s, pagers found their true moment decades later when being reachable, anytime, anywhere, became a modern necessity. Each device worked by receiving radio signals from a central transmitter. When someone dialed your pager number, it would either flash a phone number on the screen or deliver a short alphanumeric code. You couldn't reply, not directly at least. You had to find a payphone or landline and call back. And yet, in that delay, there was something human. Thoughtfulness, anticipation. These beeps weren't just about urgency. They were a new form of digital etiquette. Though long replaced by smartphones and real-time messaging, pagers marked the beginning of constant connectivity, and the first buzz of life lived on call. Which memories of the 70s stuck with you the most? Share it in the comments below. We'd love to hear. And if this video brought back a smile, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you never miss another nostalgic trip down memory lane. Thanks for watching.